Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast. And it is a Red Mill special for you listeners because Catherine Austin and myself have got together with one of their supported riders, and she is a little bit of a legend. Not only is she exceptionally talented, she is exceptionally lovely as well. She comes from eventing dynasty, basically. Welcome to the show, Lissa Green.
Thanks, Nicole.
I mean, just to put a bit of pressure on you to start, I do like to. But it's brilliant to have you on the show because I'm really looking forward to hearing your story and sort of how your career has got to this point and where you hope for it to go in the future. Can we go back to the beginning as to where it started? Because obviously, Mum Lucinda, your father has been hugely involved in the sport as well. You grew up in a time whereby I imagine eventing was very much your childhood. So was it always something that you wanted to follow in their footsteps and kind of do yourself as a career, or did that come later?
No, that definitely came later. I mean, my brother and I grew up with our weekends being in random different fields, watching our parents ride. My mum even had a cage put across the Luton so she could throw us in and we wouldn't fall out.
That's actually amazing. An actual cage.
Actually hilarious, yeah. So she could pull it across, and she knows we would knew we were safe. Oh God! So she knew we were safe and wouldn't fall out, which we still tease her about. And she's like, "Brilliant invention, brilliant!" Till this day. We had so much fun growing up, and I think it was a sort of unique childhood with Lauren Todd and Nicholson kids as well. You just had this odd group of people just running around each event wild, and I swear we didn't see adults until the end of the day every day.
It was a lot of fun. Though.
Yes, so much fun. But it did take a long time to want to copy completely. Like I've always loved the horses. I couldn't imagine being around any other animals so much more. And I've always enjoyed having one horse growing up and having fun, and it was purely on a having fun basis. I didn't really mind if I didn't get better. I just loved doing it and loved jumping, loved hunting, loved anything that gave you a little bit of thrill and speed. And I went through this juniors, but not competitively. I did JRNs and everything was just enjoyable. And then watching the London Olympics from home, it was something sort of awoke inside that was definitely there. It was just a little dormant that was just like, you've got to give this a go because this is so in your blood. So from then on, we've been trying to set up a yard of horses and cracking on.
And listen, what did your parents think when you told them that you did want to try and make a real go of it as a career?
They're as ever, they're wonderful. They're like, that's absolutely fine, but off you crack to do it on your own. It's got to, we don't have hundreds of thousands to be able to pour into it. So it's build up from where you can, which is what we've been trying to do.
Do you think there was any, did you feel extra pressure? I mean, the amount of medals between your parents is quite extraordinary. Olympic golds, European golds, the lot. Do you think that
definitely more than I can count?
Yes, I can imagine, yeah. Did that add pressure to it, or was it actually because they were so laid back about it that actually it was your own path to find?
I never, ever had any pressure from them whatsoever. In fact, the complete opposite. But the pressure I created for myself was well in existence. I think I remember a small memory back in my youth that still sits with you till this day. I remember doing my first ever JRN, first novice, and on a borrowed horse, and came 7th. And it was the best the horse and I ever did together. So it was all downhill from there, but it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. And I remember looking at the scoreboard and this elation as a top 10 in my next to my name, and these people next to me, the mum pointing at my name, saying to her daughter, saying, "Gosh, she must be useless compared to her mum." I was like, oh no,
that's terrible.
And I literally had the bottom of my world fall out. I was like, oh Christ. And I think that probably that one comment in itself stopped me pursuing it so competitively for quite a long time, because it was, in my eyes, it was a non-winning battle. It was impossible. You needed brilliant horses, which we didn't have access to, And because of that, I would always be last or in a different sort of league. And it wasn't something I was really prepared to do. And then after the Olympics, I was like, well, actually, screw it. You've got to learn your trade. It doesn't matter where you're coming. You've got to learn to ride the bad horses. They give you the skill set for when you do get that good horse one day. And not that they've been bad that I've been ridden, but they've definitely been unique and probably not the top of people's wish lists.
that it seems to be a horse as well that you really can get a tune out of. We're going to talk about a few of them a little bit later, because actually, like you say, you haven't had a sort of a ready-made horse handed to you on a plate, so to speak, but actually those slightly quirky characters seem to suit you well, and you actually together you can sort of forge your own path and get some good results that way.
Well, I've had a lot of fun, but there has also been no choice. It was these characters to make, and they've turned into my best friends by sheer chance. We've had some really, really good few years with them. So, yes, you can't be too miserable at the lack of opportunity, because opportunity has presented itself in a totally different manner, and I wouldn't change it.
Wouldn't change it for the world. Can we talk about one of those horses now, actually? Because
yes.
Marlin Headclover, he was the horse that perhaps when you first got together, it wouldn't be an obvious combination that you think, actually, he's going to take you around your first badminton. But he did so 2017. And just tell us a little bit about him, because actually he was a horse that you took on back in 2015, I think, but he'd had some reasonable results, but it'd always been a little bit checkered.
Yeah, and fascinatingly enough, I remember finding him on Horse Quest, and he was the only advanced horse that wasn't a crazy amount of money. And I just set my sights on him. I thought, well, maybe I can somehow raise this sort of price. And I was very blind looking at his results. I didn't see any of his horse falls. I read through his results so many times, and I literally didn't see them. It was so interesting when your mind wants something, what you can block out naturally. And I went to try him, and he was so small when he came out. So he's only 15.2, built, bum high, slightly on his forehand. And I totally fell in love with him. I jumped around some quite big show jumps, and he can just spring into the air. And I was like, wow, I've never felt anything like this. This is incredible. And this amazing group of people came together, and we managed to buy him and get him. But I not heard of him really, the horse, before I saw him on Horse Quest. And I had actually a few of my friends phone up, really worried once I bought him, saying, he is incredibly strong. I think he's too strong for you. He's not a girl's ride. We were a bit worried. And I was like, oh Christ. And then my first competition I did with him, we fell, and he put me in hospital for a week, had 2 operations and broke 8 bones. And I remember lying there, and I was like, good decision, goodbye. Well done.
How do you come back from that? Because that's a fairly major event to happen because you were seriously injured. So you were on the sidelines for a little while.
Absolutely.
At any point you think, do you know what, do I want to do this? Is this the right thing to do?
The amazing thing was I was in so much pain that I didn't really have time to think negatively whatsoever, which was fantastic in a really weird way. And I slept so much of it. And I was in hospital for a week, and they plated my chin. My chin was in 2. So I couldn't swallow or speak or talk, because it would just come apart between the teeth, the whole bone top to bottom. And once that was plated, that changed my life. That was that it stopped hurting really. And they were desperate to do my collarbone. And I knew if they did my collarbone, I wouldn't be able to ride. And I knew if I didn't ride him again before the season was over, and this was in September, that I probably wouldn't want to get on him again. So I chose not to do the collarbone operation, and I competed him again 5 weeks later. And I remember being in the start box at Dauncey, and the start man said, 10 seconds to go. And I had this, I can't describe, this wave of fear go from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes. And I thought, I don't want to do this. I absolutely, and my arms started shaking. And I've never had anything like that. I've been really fortunate enough to never suffer from a huge amount of nerves. And this was something I had no knowledge with how to cope with. I didn't know how to turn, what to do. And I literally said to myself, and he said 5 seconds. And I said, that's fine. You don't have to go. You don't have to go now. You can walk home. But if you walk home now, then that's it. You walk away for good. And in that moment, he said, go. And I just went, oh, go. And then as soon as he left the start box, we, all that negativity went away, and we managed to get round clear, which was amazing. So it's all thanks to that exact moment, that decision. And I never had that feeling again.
Did it literally just go away? Was
Completely.
it just those sort of 15 seconds or not even that? And then you just felt fine competing him again?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled to control him. And the next event I did was at Alden, and I could not stop him, but I didn't have that same fear. It was replaced by a different one. And I remember lovely Toddy, Mark came up to me and just like, that's, you cannot go that fast. I was like, I cannot stop. It's I promise you this is not a choice. He was like, no, I can see it's not a choice, but let's do something about it. And he was so kind and so nice to take the time to bother to come up and talk to people. That's what I love about the sport. Everyone is so wanting to help other people. And
how
eventually,
did you turn it around?
I went back to a different bit. I did so much hacking and just jumping. It felt like the horse was running in quite a lot of fear. He's had a lot of different really big bits. So I went back to another bit that he used growing up. I spoke to his lovely first rider, and it was all partnership. I just had to build his trust in me. He had none in me, and why should he? But my logic was saying horses do not want to fall. They're intelligent animals. They don't want to be on the ground. We've got to find a way through to him. And I do remember Mum saying, the way you ride this horse, you must lock it up, put it in a box and throw the key away, and never ride another horse the same way as you ride him, because it's so unique. And it was the sort of animal, because he was built on his forehand, because he had to run, I had to let him run into the fences. And then 3 strides out, when you're on a perfect stride on a normal horse, I'd have to literally yank and push him back onto his hocks and essentially always chip in. And then that would bring him up into the air and stop him running through the fence. And you wouldn't want to ride a horse that way at all, but he loved it, and it works.
Yeah, if it works and you found the key, and that ultimately, I mean, he jumped clear around badminton, which
he did have run out, but it was a run out that if he had jumped he would have fallen. So it was phenomenal. I was very, very ill, and it was only fence 9. It was the Outlander Bank. And I was talking to myself from the lake onwards, saying, you're not going to make this because you're way too weak. Mum didn't want me to run because she could see that I only walked the course once, that badminton. And that was one of the toughest courses we've ever seen. Every time I got to fence 5, I had to go home. And I remember coming into the Outlander Bank thinking, well, this fence is big enough. This will back him off. I can have a break here. And he didn't, and he bolted at it, and he jumped up so flat. And if he had taken off over the log on top, he wouldn't have made it. So he did the most amazing maneuverability to jump round the log. But that gave me all the determination, saying, I can't believe I'm never going to be able to jump clear around my first badminton again. Mortified me, but it got us home. And I always wonder to myself, being that ill, would I have got home if I hadn't had that run out? It's a weird sort of sense.
But it was pretty special, wasn't it, to come to badminton, your first badminton, and I remember how elated you were afterwards, even despite the 20 penalties. It must have been, you must have thought, this has been a long time coming, and I'm here.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. Like, I still have this stupid grin. There's quite a few photos going up to the start box, and Mum is still can't believe those photos whenever we have a look. And I've got this absolute childlike grin, and I'm counting down, and I've got this grin on my face, and I cannot take it off. It was so surreal. It was things you dream about since you're a tiny, tiny girl. Walking up to the start box, there was no fear. It was just this unbelievable Cheshire cat grin that I could not remove. And to actually get home as well, because I mean, there's a lot. I mean, a lot of people didn't think he would make it round either. So it was, and to be honest, I thought I would either get home clear or have a fall. It was one or the other. And he absolutely just, he never gave up. He was the easiest he's ever been to ride round Badminton because it was so big. And he just went, yeah, right, let's do this together.
He went. Was it 2017? Was it raining in 2017?
Yes, very slippery that year. Really very slippery.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you put all of those things into account and you think back that actually only 3 years previously you had been sat in a Starbucks having that kind of numbing fear to
it's weird, isn't it?
Your first badminton on the same horse, and you're grinning, despite the fact I remember reading and following you in the lead up to badminton. You had been so poorly as to whether you would even be able to compete. I mean, to walk the course at badminton once and actually go out on your first badminton and leave that start box is quite remarkable. But it was
thank you.
It's been a bit of a trait of determination. Is that fair of me to say? Because you believe very faithfully in his ability, and actually your partnership, it comes back to that you felt actually this can get us through here.
It was amazing. I remember my wonderful stepmom, Jackie, coming up to me afterwards, and she was just like, you told me he would listen to you when the fences were bigger, and I did not believe you, but that was totally awesome. She was like, I'm so pleased that you had that belief in him, because I didn't, basically. But I always felt I knew how intelligent that animal was. I knew how hard he tried. I knew how much he felt the love from me, and I've really felt he reciprocated the love as well. And I knew he had the ability and the talent and determination, and he sort of rubbed off on me, I think, not the other way around.
How heartbreaking was it not to be able to complete?
Honestly, not hugely. Interestingly, it's probably the different answer you're expecting. On the Sunday, I'd used every cylinder I had to get around the cross country, and I wasn't actually well for another 10 days. If you're on the red and you still go and exert yourself to max capacity, you go below the red. And it devastated me for my owners and for the horse, because he deserved that more than anything. And I would have mustered the ability to jumping around, because he was always a final day jumper. He was the most phenomenal jumper on the last day, and he wouldn't do much in the warm up, and he would come in and react to the crowd and just do everything to jump clear. So that, missing out on that, and now I feel, well, that's really gutting. But at that time, it was okay.
It wasn't physically possible.
No.
But then you were terribly unlucky that autumn, weren't you? That you you were preparing for Burghley, you'd had some good results, and then it all went wrong for him.
Oh, it was so sad. He was a sufferer of arthritis with his age, and it was very well manageable. But it was just not meant to be, I guess, because we turned up to Burghley and he was flying, and I rode him the morning of the trot up and he felt amazing. And it was quite cold that time at Burghley, and I always wonder if that had anything to play with it. And then we brought him out. Mum turned up at lunchtime and she said, oh, should we just trot him up? Because she's a trot up obsessive. Whenever she turns up at the yard, we trot everything up. Natural. And so we trotted him up just, as part of the course, just before we went to walk the course, actually. And we're like, oh my God, he's not right. And that was way more difficult to deal with than the final day at badminton. I remember getting their vet on site and getting him to trot them up with me. And they're like, well, we could probably get him through a trot up and see how he is during the week. But there was just something in my gut that I was like, I can't start the event like this. I don't want to do that to him. He's just done everything for me. And I remember going to the stable manager's office and they were like, you're right. And I burst into tears, and I never cry. It was so awkward because it was that really awful, like loud noise because you try to laugh it off and then you go, and I was like, oh no. And then people turn around, they're like, what's wrong? I was like, I want to withdraw. It was awful. I mean, Mum was incredible. She went through all that traffic to go and get a bottle of rum and a packet of cigarettes. Which
Like
is,
all good mothers. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I don't really smoke either anymore, but I definitely smoked that night.
I think you can get away with it that night. And he has, I mean, unfortunately, he hasn't been out competing internationally since badminton, but he has a very happy second career now, doesn't he? In still sort of playing around and teaching the ropes to somebody that has been part of his career with you.
Yes, exactly. Well, he's just been the most awesome little man, and I was like, we could get him back up to international level, but it is what's the point? Like, I just could not bear him to go wrong on a course out there and have to make a horrible decision, which can happen to the most healthy of horses. So it just felt not right to pursue something that would only be for me. Although that horse loves competing, we've managed to find a new life for him and teaching lovely, lovely people at the lower end and going around some 90s and just having the world's best time and totally looking after them and them totally having the best time. That's probably giving me more joy than watching my own videos back. I turned into a complete mother as I'd be running around the courses trying to video every fence, and as they finish I cannot move, doubled over. But that's been just as thrilling as everything else. He's the horse that keeps on giving.
It's amazing though, because he was obviously a horse that was very, very keen cross country. So for him to now go back down to the very sort of lower levels and be so relaxed and be so kind and calm and look after them is amazing.
It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating, because we always worried that would be a real problem and we couldn't retire him to this sort of life. But he's just, because there's nothing to get his blood up, he just does this most beautiful. He's a little strong. I mean, they have to do a good job to still keep him, but it's nothing. It's not the same animal as we are trying to deal with. And he's still a little strong, but he's absolutely got everything under his own umbrella, and it's almost like he walks the course himself first. He always seems to know exactly where to go.
And Lissa, 2018 was a huge year for you in lots of ways. That was the year that you changed nationality and from riding for Britain to riding for Australia. Tell us about that and what it meant to you to ride for Australia and what it means going forward for your career.
I have to say it's something actually I've always been considering, and I know a lot of British listeners will be listening to this, so there's zero offence meant, and I very much love Britain and everything there is to do with it. But something to do with Australia, it's just always grabbed me at the sort of pit of my stomach. Whenever I'm in Australia, I feel really at home. I love the people, I love the lifestyle, I love the surroundings, the landscape, everything about it. I'm like, this country is really special. And I think ask anyone that's visited it, everyone comes back with the same sort of opinions. And there was just so much in my mind. I was like, I've got to do the top end of the sport. I've spent the majority of my riding life at the low end of the sport. And it was my sort of decision. I've got to get round 5 stars, make sure I love it, because you just don't know until you do it. And if I love it, then I'm going to continue to pursue it, but it will be under the Australian flag. And I mean, I spend every single day of my horsey life with my mum, and my dad lives in Australia, and he's on a different time zone. He's always listening to everything a day later and catching up a day later. And for me to stay even more connected with him, representing Australia, really meant a lot to me for his benefit as well. And I love the Australian system. For me, I think it suits my riding much more beneficially than the British system, although the British system is incredibly enviable around the world. You've got to understand what suits your sort of character.
Yeah. Makes
what
sense.
works for you. And actually, it's worth clarifying that obviously your dad is Australian and has actually won a team gold for Australia. Back in 1992 when Australia was so dominant through the 90s, and he was part of that. So I can totally understand. You were 3 at the time, I think, when he won that.
Yes, exactly that.
So sort of growing up, I can appreciate how, even though obviously you've grown up over here, that those roots are very much there. Now, in terms of horses that you have now, I wanted to ask you about Holyfield, who actually went really well for you at Badminton back in 2018, was it? And then a freak accident actually saw him put out of action, and that was after you'd had a call-up, I think, for the Australian sort of high performance squad as such. Is that right?
Yes, exactly that. He was he was another horse that we found that was cheap and was being eliminated at 2 stars. Had a really dirty stop in him. And I remember buying him and taking him straight to Dickie Waygard for a lesson. And unbeknown to me, Dickie called up my mother after and said, "Why the hell have you let her buy another rubbish horse? she needs a good one. What are you doing?" And Mum was like, "Oh, crap, well, I don't know." It was her decision. And I do remember the first event I did on Holyfield, I got 42 penalties in the show jumping, I think. And I remember coming out the arena and Jock Paget saying to me, being, that beautiful concerned look on his face, saying, "Don't worry, mate, we all have to ride rubbish like that to pay the bills." And I just looked at him, I was like, "Yeah, no, I know." I didn't have the heart to say I just bought him. I actually made the decision to purchase him. I haven't been stuck with him.
He took some sort of retraining in that phase, didn't he? And actually you did find the key to him as well.
Yes, and Dickie's always been such a huge help to helping me find those keys with all the horses. Actually, he's phenomenal. But yeah, Oli was an interesting one, and he's such a professional shutter downer. There would be no one at home immediately and you can't get through to him. And I remember Mum saying, "Look, he's too far gone. He needs more strength. He's a man's ride because he's too good at shutting down. Let's moving on before we get even more bad results." And that was the best thing she ever said, because that gave me the fire to go, actually, no way. Let's give. I've got no choice now. I've got to get through to him. And we just developed this most beautiful friendship, which we still have. It is amazing. I sit on him and it's like putting on an old glove. There's no description about it. He thinks how I think, and we have exactly the same thrills in life, and it's just awesome. Love riding him.
And he actually came back after having had that time off to Barocca this year. So you're one of the few people that actually has been out eventing internationally this year.
You did really well.
So pleased now that you went to Portugal in March and February.
I'm feeling very smug.
Yeah, absolutely. But he went really well there. Finished on his dressage score for 3rd in the long format 3-star. So what will be the plan with him? Obviously, we don't know when eventing is going to sort of restart again, but what will be the plan with him when things do move?
Well, as you say, he had that injury 2 days before Burghley because of fireworks being unworn fireworks being set off just right by his fields. And I remember going down at 10 o'clock just as I heard them from my home, got in the car and came down, and he seemed... everyone was unsettled. Like there was sweat coming off them, steam, the hoods were down by their necks. They'd just been going mad. But I felt for cuts, I felt for the damage in the fences, and that seemed okay. But the next day he was quite obviously laying behind. We hoped it would just be a bang, and we were icing it every 2 hours through the night for 2 days, and then came up to Burghley for the trot up, and it had improved. So we hoped, because we felt it was just only a bang, we're like, okay, well, let's do the dressage. And if he's not perfect by Saturday, we won't run. And because if it is a bang and we'd be sitting there on Friday with him being perfect, we'd be like, why the hell didn't we go up? So we did his dressage, and I jumped him after the dressage. And I just like, he doesn't feel right. He's not pushing evenly. And thank goodness, because he improved so much that we felt he would be sound by Saturday. But but the pushing didn't feel right. It didn't feel like the horse I'd ridden. And then we discovered further, and he basically is so incredibly brave. He should have been so lame with the injury he had. He's just such a tough animal. And that was what the vet said when I remember when we vetted him. He said, I always try to find something wrong, and I just can't find anything wrong with this horse. He's amazing. And he basically, the femur, he galloped at high speed and stopped and turned really fast, and the femur slipped out of the knee joint and crushed his meniscus on the inside. Oh, I know, the poor horse. And so he had to have an operation there, and they gave him a 25% chance of coming back. And we've worked so hard. I've had the most amazing team to just try. I mean, we're not out the woods yet by any means, and I need to wait till we go up a level. I started him at the 3-star in Barocca, a level he should be able to do with his eyes closed, which he did do, but he was sound at the end of it. And I'm so happy, and I've just got to make sure that we continue doing right by him, continue building him and building the strength so he can go up the grades. I had entered him for badminton. Who knows if we would have made it there, because naturally we'd have had to go up a level and compete before that. But if you don't enter, you've definitely not got a chance. So I think at this stage, Lemoulen is looking unlikely. So perhaps we'll hopefully aim for Poe, but tentatively. I've learned not to get too excited and just have your aims and hope you get there, but do right by the horse always.
Tell us a little bit about your home setup and what other horses you've got at the moment and what you're excited about.
I made a huge change last year. I went down from 14 horses to 4. Made a big decision to actually, especially with a good bang to the heads throughout last year, which put quite a damaging time on our history books. I was like, well, this isn't the good. Let's focus. Why do I want to do the sport? It's like, I love the sport. I love every horse that's on my yard. But ultimately, I'm only doing this because I really, really want to get to the top with all the horses. And so I made a really difficult decision to move on every horse that definitely wasn't going to make it to 5-star. And that left me with just 4, which I hope will make to 5-star. And only time will tell. And those 4 are Holyfield, who's our lovely boy we're talking about, who just came 3rd in Barocca, as you say. He absolutely nailed that cross country. He's a horse I've always struggled with after this 6.5, 7-minute time. He always sort of flakes out and gets a bit tired. Thanks to his new feeding regime, he was finishing that, crossing that finish line as if he was starting it, which is amazing for a horse that hasn't galloped or competed for 19 months. And then the next horse down is Boline, who we found in the Czech Republic, another one we've been trying to fix up, and we've managed to really get her show jumping, which was a problem of hers. But the flat work, we are looking down alternative routes, let's say. She's absolute panicker. She's fascinating. She panics in canter. It's not the environment at her at a competition. It doesn't matter. I can't canter at home in an arena either. It's
only dressage. Is she okay to jump?
No, she's not okay to jump either, but at least she's got something to focus. So it's we've managed to find a happy halfway point where she's on my side now for the jumping. But there's nothing else to do in the dressage. You're literally cantering around a circle or a straight line, and she absolutely hates it. I know. So, but she's been amazing. She did my first meter 35 tracks in Spain, which I hadn't been riding for 4 months with my head, and going down to the Sunshine Tour was a chance to really try and get back together with my horses again. And I never thought I'd be jumping bigger than 1.20 m. So thanks to her, a horse that used to come with 7 down around 1.20 m, taking me up to 1.35 m. I was really grateful to her. She's been absolutely amazing. So I am excited by her because she is brave enough to jump around badminton, but I can't do a pre-novice test yet. So.
You've got to work the dressage for now first.
Yeah, exactly.
What
We
about
take
the
bets
other?
on her score at the moment, just not if she's going to be last, but by how many points.
Oh, bless her.
I know.
What about the other horses in your team? And then actually I want to ask you about that head injury that you mentioned.
Yeah.
It was a tough year in 2019 for you.
Yes, could have been better. Yeah, and then we've got a gap down to my pre-novice novice horse called Igor G. I bought him. I was given him to sell into the eventing world from Michael Whitaker, and he wasn't quite careful enough at that age. And I rode him for 3 months and sold him to the first person who bought him. But sadly for them, circumstances changed and they couldn't go through with the sale. And I was like, well, I keep telling everyone I'd buy him if I could. Why am I letting him go? And I called up my wonderful owner, Ali Gill, and said, do you want to go into business? Do you want to buy him half each? He's going pretty cheap and we can see if we can make some money on him. She's like, that's fantastic. But I bet you want to buy him off me at the end of the year. And I was like, not a chance. No way, not a chance. I wanted to buy him off her at the end of the year. He just absolutely tries. I mean, he's a weak horse. He's got a lot of growing and maturing to do. But he went to the Sunshine Tour in Veja and started as a 100 horse, and he finished a meter 30 horse and jumped absolutely incredible. He never has to jump bigger than that in his life in eventing. He was amazing, and he's so flashy on the flat. He's such a striking picture. Sorry, not flashy, but he moves well, and he's like a metronome. But he's striking, and he's got that look at me aura. I'm really excited by him. I think he's going to be absolutely amazing. And then I've got 2 really divine young babies. One that came with me from last year called Wolf Cub that I bought off Kim O'Gorman, who's one of my best friends in Ireland. And she's really cool. She's sassy. She's got the attitude, the character, the jump. So I'm excited to be working with her. And then my longtime owner, Daniela Seif, bit the bullet and we went and bought a horse only last month, actually. And I don't think I've ever had the fortune to sit on something so classy. I feel like maybe we'll be in the realms of everyone else now with this guy. He's only just turned 5. I don't need even to look at him in case something goes wrong. I just cannot believe my luck that something like this is in my yard. He is unreal. So yeah, he'd probably be my most exciting prospect for the moment.
What's his name again?
Expo di Almatera. He's from Italy.
Oh, there we go, listeners.
Yes.
Before we let you go, can I ask you about your head injury last year? Because actually you had a fairly quiet second half of the season, and there was a very good reason behind that, wasn't there?
Yes, so I couldn't really work out what was going wrong last year. It's an odd concussion is an odd thing to explain, and I just wasn't right. I couldn't ride how I wanted to ride. I couldn't do any task how I wanted to do. I couldn't get my words out. I couldn't converse with people. I get frustrated quite quickly because I just couldn't understand what was going wrong, really. My balance was all off. My saddles were going hard right to the back. And I was like, damn saddles. You never look at yourself. And I was trying to get them reflocked and this and that. They're like, the saddles are absolutely fine. I was like, well, I don't know what's going on. And the horses eventually started curling their bums to the right to compensate my lack of balance, which is terrifying, isn't it? And I had that slogan in my mind that is, if you're always training or untraining your horse. I was like, all I'm doing is untraining each and every single one of them. This whole year, I'm not doing any benefit whatsoever. They've just been amazing to look after me. And it was horrible. And I ended up going to the doctor and explaining I had these awful dizzy spells, and I would get to a show and I'd get really, really dizzy. I'm like, I don't even want to get on. I have no interest to do anything because I don't have the ability to it's almost, I guess, in a really weird way, a bit of a depression, because you're using all the energy you have to stay upright and get from A to B. To do anything in between was impossible. It was the absolute max. It was so strange.
Where did it start? Where did it come about?
What happened was in November 2018, I fell down, which would be quite funny if it didn't amount to something so serious. I was on the phone in a restaurant and I leant against their door and it wasn't locked properly, and I went backwards down 25 concrete stairs to the bottom of my cellar. I know. It was pretty brutal, and I actually don't remember that whole day. And I was sick immediately, went to hospital and totally out of it. And I also broke my collarbone at the same time, but I had no idea because my head was so bad. I didn't even notice the collarbone really. And I was going to Sweden to do the International Horse Show with Ali G. And it was only a week later, and I was like, I've got to go, I'll let them all down. And of course you don't. And I've always been like, 21 days when you fall off and hit your head from BE is such a long time. Now I'm wholeheartedly behind that, and if not more. I then went out to Sweden. It's the first time I really moved. When I landed in Sweden, I was sick. I had to go to bed. I was so out of it, so dizzy and so dazed. And then I tried to ride the next evening, and I remember everything was blurry, and I kept trying to blink really hard coming into the fences just to try and clear my vision. And it's like you're not in the room. There's no one at home. And I eventually, even Ali G, amazing as he is, couldn't cope with that for the whole round. And I ended up falling off at the second last or something. And I think that second head spin or head bang after only a week apart has been the real damaging aspect of it all. I went on holiday with my other half and his friend, and thank God he had a friend, because all I did was sleep, and I kept putting it down to a bad year, a tiring year, not a bad year, sorry. So I was like, oh God, yeah, it's just been a really tiring year. I've got to go, and I would go to bed at 7. Yeah, go to bed at 7, get up at 7 and have a nap in the afternoon. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was and then you just carry the problem is it becomes your new normal. You don't really remember how you were before, because you get home and you get on the horses, you do what you've always done, and you're finding everything really impossible, but you don't know why. So you just carry on going and keep going and keep going. And it was, and then I felt like I was vaguely starting to get better. And then I fell off on my feet at Barbary when poor horsey stood on his shoe in the water. And it wasn't a bad fall, I just landed on my feet, but I was so dizzy for the next 4 days. Really feeling sick. I tried to go to Wilton and had to pretty much withdraw everything. And I was like, this is mental. I've got to go and get this all sorted. So I went to a really good neurosurgeon in London. Sorry, neurologist, not neurosurgeon. And it went from there. And so I had sort of damage to my inner ear and damage to my vision. Vision is apparently the last thing to come back. So I've been needing to wear glasses, and I had no idea my vision was bad until I put glasses on and could see well again. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
So did you literally just spend sort of after that, the second half of the year, did you ride at all, or was it a total break? Not at all.
Total break. I completely stopped. I literally turned into a couch potato. But you don't really want to watch screens, so you're trying not to watch TV. But oh God, it was just exhausting, the whole thing. And I went to go and visit my lovely brother and his wife in New Zealand, and then my dad in Australia. So that took a lot of time out as well. But all that flying wasn't good for me. When I landed, I'd sleep for days. It just felt never ending. I've got the amazing help with the Balance Rider at the moment, who are based in Southampton. And she's been helping me with my balance and getting me to do these brain exercises. And the funny thing is, when I do these balance brain exercises, it's something so simple. It's like standing with your whole body against a wall and trying to lift up one leg. Cannot do it. And then when I can do it, it's so easy. It's like the brain goes, oh yeah, I remember that. And I can do it so easily. And then I do another task, and then I go back to that task, and it's like I've never done it again. Cannot do it. So it's what I'm having to train myself to do now is learn to be able to go from one task to another really, really quickly. Learning, I brush my teeth on balance boards. I do anything I can to put myself into a different position where I have to think about more than one thing at once. And I can now do it all, but I cannot do it with closed eyes yet. So I'm relying too much on my eyes, which is very typical of vestibular injuries, is that your brain doesn't trust your ears anymore, and your ear is where you are in the world. If you're bending left or right or wherever you are, your brain gets the information from your ear. So it relies solely on my eyes. So when my eyes get tired, which they do quite regularly, or if I close my eyes, I get that wave of motion sickness through my whole body as my brain goes into panic mode and goes, well, where are you? I don't know where you are. I don't know where you are. It's fascinating. I've learned a lot, let's say.
It's quite an extraordinary journey, and I'm sure something that actually some people perhaps wouldn't have known. And I think actually one thing I hope it does is raise awareness, because
that would be great.
Yeah, if you could say anything to anybody who perhaps thought what you did, that 21 days, that feels like quite a long time, but having been through what you've been through now, what would you hope could come out of them actually thinking back to hearing this and going, oh, do you know what, actually I'm just going to play it safe?
I don't think you can ever play it too safe. It's and I've always been one to push the boundaries and crack on and do this. I hated the rule that if you fall off, you can't get back on again. I've always been so sort of in denial in this sort of area. And I mean, speaking to the neurologist when I first met him, he was like, if you came to me at the beginning, I would have told you that I 100% would get you better. But the fact that you've been trying to get right, trying to carry on for so long, nearly a year, and you're so not right, he had the very real realization that I might never go back to how I was before. That's pretty terrifying. And I really do struggle. I went down to Sunshine Tour and I had an amazing week. And as soon as I don't have the sleep is where your brain heals. I started getting dizzy. The fences were moving. So in week 2, I had to withdraw a few classes and literally go to bed. And then by week 3, I was fine again. But it's learning the traffic light signals. I'm now learning that when I'm flashing amber, stop, go to sleep, and then you don't get into the red. And that changes everything. Yeah. So if you ever hit your head, it's well worth having a good nap.
One thing, Lissa, I can be assured of is that you have used up all your bad luck, and things from now on will go really, really, really well for you.
Oh, thank you. My lovely vet said that to me today, actually. He's just like, I don't know anyone. He's Tom McEwen's father, and he's just fantastic. And he was just like, it's turning. I can feel it's turning. So let's hope you're both right. Thank you.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure it will. And we will really look forward to following your journey. Before we go, obviously this is a Red Mill special. You mentioned a little bit earlier on in the show about Holyfield and changing his feeding program, which has actually made a massive difference to him. Just tell us a bit about it, because I know it's something you're really passionate about. And I just think it would be, again, our listeners are going to learn a lot from this episode. I really hope so.
Well, I had the most fun time last year. The majority of last year, I was actually trying quite a few different feeds. And I think I had five or six feed companies going. And I was trying horses on some feeds and then switching them to another feed. So I really felt like I got to learn so much about what was being put into my horses and how they reacted, and how more warm-bloody horses reacted and how more fiery horses reacted. It was the most personally satisfying year in that respect, because everything else was going wrong. I did learn a lot on the nutrition side. And Red Mills for me just absolutely trumped it. So I was so impressed with the range. I think notoriously, because it's a racehorse feed company, people think it's quite fiery. In fact, someone asked me that today. They're like, what do you feed now? I was like, Red Mills. They're like, is it fiery? And I was like, if you want it to be, absolutely. But I've got some very fiery horses and it's perfect for them. It's been fascinating with Holyfield. He's really had a no-go button. He's always been a bit of a CIC horse, and I've struggled with any length of distance from 2-star and above, 3-star now and above. And the last couple of minutes have always been quite tough to get him thinking in, hello, are you at home? And Barocca, as I said, I couldn't believe it. He finished the last fence as if he was jumping the first, and I've never ever had that in my life with him. I look back and I think of Poe, where there was only 2 horses inside the time that day, one on the time and one second inside the time. three fences from home. He was 10 seconds up on the time, and he was going to go into 7th place, and he absolutely died on me and came to a halt at a house that, having jumped around that whole course like a complete pro, there's no way in hell he would have stopped at a house, but the lights completely went out. And I think, God, imagine how my life changed if we had a top 10 and a 5-star with him. It would have been amazing. And I'm just so excited that he's now got the fuel, I feel, for the distance, really. My vets and my trainers have been looking at them in January, and they're like, God, their top line is just unbelievable. Their muscle is so developed. They just look incredible. So I'm feeling very, very grateful that Red Mills allowed me to join.
Well, I think it speaks volumes. And actually, that's one of the things that I have loved about this podcast, Lissa, because as Catherine says, I really, really hope that the tide starts to turn for you and that the luck does come on your side in the next few years, because you absolutely 100% deserve it. And we will be following your progress. We will get you on the show again in the future, I am sure. But thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine, as well. It has been most enjoyable this
My
episode.
pleasure. It's been really interesting. I love doing these.
Oh, it really has. Lissa, thank you. Catherine, thank you. Listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this Red Mill special of the Echo Ratings Eventing podcast. We will be back very soon with another episode for you. But in the meantime, don't forget to find us across social media, and we'll be back again shortly. Thanks for listening.